Thanks for joining me. I'd like to talk about trekking poles and talk about what I used when I was on the Appalachian Trail. When I was on trail, I ended up buying 4 different sets of hiking poles, and I'll explain why that happened, what the downside was to some of the purchases I made, and what I ended up deciding to be my long-term trekking poles. Having never ever been on a long-term hiking trip, certainly nothing that ever required any kind of poles, I was a little apprehensive about what I would take to trail. And knowing that I was going to hike the White Mountain National Forest first, I decided to buy, instead of trekking poles, I ended up buying these hiking poles by Kelty, and they look like this, kind of a long handle like this, and have the different style for the bottom, and they collapse into 3 parts that you can easily hook onto your backpack. I thought this is going to be great, but my joy was short-lived, because on the way down from Mount Musalak, on a very steep descent that follows a waterfall, one of these I bent literally almost in half, and the joy of my Kelty poles was over. I ended up going to Wal-Mart that evening and buying a very economical pair of poles to take me on the next part of the White Mountain National Forest. Now, I'll be honest, that didn't go so bad. I paid $20 for them, and they had a nice handle, cork, that keeps your hands fairly warm when it's wet out or cool, and 2 adjustments. And I thought, you know, what do you get for $20 sticks? But honestly, they were not too bad. They had a nice bottom on them, carbide tips on them. They adjusted quite easily, and I could get them to the height that I needed, put all my weight on them, and they did not do too bad. The only problem that I had was remembering to take them with me, because I had never hiked with poles before, and the morning that I summited Mount Washington, I left my Wal-Mart hiking poles laying up against the Lake of the Clouds hut, and now they belong to somebody else. Back to Wal-Mart, I bought the identical set and used them all the way through the White Mountains. Ended up going up to the 100-mile wilderness. I trekked all the way through the 100-mile wilderness with them. The only problem that I noticed with them is, after a while, the poles themselves, not at the adjustment right here, but underneath the adjustment, so not on this part right here, but this part right here, several times in the 100-mile wilderness, I stuck my pole in, and this part on the bottom stayed, and the stick on the top came with me. I determined these aren't going to work for me long term. I need something different. 2 or 3 different places, looking at different models, different things, I decided that $150 or $200 trekking poles are not good for me. I decided on these black diamonds. They only have 1 adjustment. I like that. Simple for me is easier. They're a little bit big around for the weight. They're just under 10 ounces a piece. They feel like good sturdy sticks. They have a nice handle on them, and these work very well. They have this, and I need trekking poles because the next tent purchase that I'm going to make is going to be part of, these poles will be part of that tent system for my poles on either end. So whether or not you use trekking poles, that's your choice. There are many hikers going through the White Mountains and the 100-mile wilderness that did not have trekking poles. Some individuals only had 1 pole. I noticed some individuals that use something similar to my Kelty pole that does not have this kind of handle, but just has a pole style or a walking stick handle, and they use that effectively. Those kind of decisions are up to you as far as what you personally want to use, but what worked well for me after I got used to them was using a traditional trekking pole that had a regular handle, that had something that I could put around my wrist, and I love the stability, especially going downhill, that I encountered once I learned how to use trekking poles. Hey, I hope this video will be helpful for you. I hope you know you don't have to break the bank when it comes to buying trekking poles. You can buy something effective, something that's simple, and I would recommend buy something inexpensive first and figure out what it is that you want to use long term, and then make your purchase for whatever it is you're going to use for keeps. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button and let's keep making trails together.